originally in university I studied film, and fairly quickly I changed to painting, and then not too long after that I changed again to recording music, and I was a recording engineer for many years, over 20 years. And then I had a restaurant, and a good friend of mine who knew that I painted and drew, I very much enjoyed drawing from life, the human figure, suggested that we take a painting class at the local university. And I took the painting class, got a very good grade, and just got hooked again. And I remembered a friend of mine, a good friend of mine who was a painter, and so I started hanging out with him, and he taught me a great deal. I already knew quite a bit, but he was a mentor, a very good mentor who helped me a great deal, Joe Areno. And he was primarily a landscape painter, also did portraits occasionally, but I learned a lot from him. But from his influence, I did a lot of landscapes originally. And he introduced me to another drawing class, which I attended with a teacher by the name of Jurgen Hansen. And through Joe and Jurgen, I also met another painter, Nick Malahy, who became a very good friend. Actually, the four of us formed a group of painters. And subsequently, Joe died in 2006, and Jurgen died a couple of years ago at the age of about, I don't know, 85 or something like that. And Nick visited us recently in Spain last summer, and he's been a great influence on me as well. After I sold the restaurant about 10 years ago and devoted myself exclusively to painting, and after I met my wife, Mary Chell, we lived for about 2.5 years in El Paso, Texas, where I went to the university there and studied painting, which was a very helpful experience. Being surrounded by a lot of other people painting, we also had life drawing opportunities. I spent about the last 15 years, more than 17 years, doing a lot of life drawing. And until we moved to Spain, I also did a lot of life drawing there, but you don't see it on the camera, but I'm looking at a drawing that I did of a woman named Elizabeth, who studies dance, and it really shows. And she also took advice very well and ended up being a wonderful model. But anyway, I continued with a lot of landscape painting in Spain. We lived in an area where 5 rivers came together, and we could walk 5 minutes and be in the countryside, even though we lived in the city. And some of the river beds, a lot of the scapes surrounding the river, really beautiful. After about a year, we got a car and had more flexibility to go to different places. And I did a lot of landscape paintings. I did paintings from drawings that I did from the live model. I did paintings of friends of mine who were musicians that I encountered in the street, or in the case of another person, lived in the same building. I really enjoy doing paintings of people doing things, and people doing things that they're really involved in, that they really care about in the case of music. Or this is the reason why Elizabeth was such a good model, because she cared about things that she does with her body. She cares about the gestures. The other models just posed, and I don't think any of them studied dance or anything, gave any thought to their bodies or their movements. But anyway, I encountered an interesting aside, is that here in Costa Rica, I met Ricardo Ulloa, who is the illustrator of Mary Chell's last book. And he's a wonderful artist who enjoys very much drawing, and I really enjoy his compositions. And I extrapolated a painting utilizing the composition of his drawings. One of these is in the show. This is another one this is just a sketch which I did just the other day from another one of his drawings. But I love his ideas compositionally, which I don't know if it was, I've always enjoyed the study of art, and I've studied art all my life, and I've encountered all the different types of painting. And perhaps it was because I lived in Spain and I was in the same light that the Fauvists painted in. We lived very near the Mediterranean, within well within 100 kilometers of where they worked in France, just above the border. We were just below the border. And there was a museum there in the south of France, in Surette, that has a lot of Fauvist work and had shows, and I rediscovered them and made an effort to interpret in my own way what I felt that they were doing. And my palette has become much more, I utilize more primary colors, more intense colors. And then I also, possibly because he painted quite a bit during the First War in Surette, I rediscovered Chaim Soutine, and he had done a great deal of landscapes in Surette, surrounding Surette, and then I also found his portrait painting, and I just love the looseness that he captures. And this has been a great influence on me. Living close to Barcelona, I would visit the Picasso Museum. There are a great deal of excellent exhibits in Barcelona, in a number of different places. It was very helpful to be near a cosmopolitan city that had all this. I remember going to Paris and visiting the Orangerie and seeing a number of Soutines there, which were more of the portrait genre, whereas the ones in Surette were more landscape. And we also would visit Collioure, where the Fauvists painted at the Mediterranean, Duran, Matisse. I recall an exhibit of Maurice Flamink in Surette. I like to use a lot of paint. I probably painted a lot thinner in the past, and I don't particularly miss that. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not trying to paint more impasto, but I find that I end up doing that because the application of the paint, I get the effect that I'm looking for much more readily by applying a lot of paint. So when I work, this is my palette after working, and this may be about the amount of paint that I started with maybe 15 years ago. But today, I would use considerably more paint. I had some good friends who are painters, who are German, who I met in California, in Santa Barbara. And people generally think of a studio as wanting to have only northern light because it doesn't change. But they introduced me to the idea of having plenty of other light from the south, the east, the west, as well as the northern light. And sure, it changes, but I love how light changes while you're painting. I do not paint from photographs unless it's perhaps someone who's died, something like that. but I cherish how, especially with a landscape, the light changes. Here in Costa Rica, it could be sunny in the morning and get cloudy in the afternoon. The light is constantly changing. It's moving from the east to the west, and this gives a life to the painting. The same thing with painting an individual, a portrait, depending on the detail, whether it's just a portrait or it's the entire body, but a person in real life has blood flowing through them. And if you try to paint from a photograph, that's missing. Also, the change in the light is missing. Their respiration is missing. Their breathing is missing. And this has an influence on my work. Just as I'm a living, breathing person, I'm not a computer program creating a painting. I'm a person creating a painting who's breathing and experiencing the changes in light, mood, everything. All this has an influence, and I find that painting from life captures this, whereas if you try to paint from a photograph, it's a lost cause. If you compare the two, a painting from life and a painting from a photograph, you'll see the difference, or if you try it yourself. My mentor, friend, Joe. This is Joe also. I don't think I painted his portrait before he died. But one of the things that I practiced with him and also with my friend Nick Malahy is going out and searching for places, landscapes to paint. Sometimes we would drive around in the car for hours looking for somewhere to paint, something that struck us. And it's not about finding something that's pretty or attractive. It's more the composition, something that's interesting. Perhaps something that has something going on in it, people doing things. Joe used to get a lot out of painting workers, for example, constructing a building. In Spain, a friend of mine who lives there, Saturni, would come with me, and we would paint together, and we would load all our stuff up. And I always think of the image of Van Gogh carrying his easel and his paints and marching off through the fields, and this was a little bit what we did. We didn't have a car originally, and there were so many places that we could go to walking that we would carry our things and maybe go down by the river, bring something to eat, bring a bottle of wine, and have this experience of painting in nature from life. And this is very, very helpful to experience the change in light, to experience life by making an effort to pack things up and go somewhere instead of just being in the comfort of the studio. And this has a strong influence on my work, and it's something that I've done for approximately the last 20 years, something like that.